No, good call. Thank you. All right, we got that
So,
covered.
okay, so for context to anybody watching this is L360 Group 10, and we're gonna have a group discussion about online leads.
Beautiful.
Hey, Kyle, floor is yours.
Hey, Kyle, can I add one more thing? I mean,
Yeah.
I love if we can cover not just online leads, but also direct to consumer. So if we can fit that all in, I'd love to try to have that part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was thinking a little bit of, Darren, through the thread of our conversation leading up to this call was, in my mind, there's probably two conversations to have, which we might be able to have both on this call. But one would be, in my mind, direct to consumer, which includes online leads and various other things through a paid channel. And then you've got the organic direct to consumer, because I think we had some good conversations surrounding that in the last mastermind call with some of the, the master's program that joined us about, social media content and various other kind of components of direct to consumer that aren't paid. So I'm sure there's some crossover between the two, but to me, it kind of feels like there's some differentiation between the two. So I was curious to start, and I think we could maybe kind of touch on both, but looking at we've been, testing various different methods over the past year and a half of paid lead generation. And the outlets we've gone through so far have been Facebook, Google, Zillow, and Realtor.com. I think you could look at everything outside of that, from billboards and radio ads and various other ways of, paid marketing and lead generation that could fall in that same category. And I'm curious just to hear what you guys have seen from a group of really highly successful, people who's jumped into that arena at all and what kind of results, because I'm trying to measure what I'm seeing and get a sense of where I'm at, how well we're performing. I feel like I have nothing to really compare against. So we've been tracking all of our numbers, but curious to see, your guys' take on that. And our hypothesis on it is just that if we can develop an arm of our business that involves paid lead generation that is at least somewhat profitable and can help us to reciprocate business back to the agents we work with, that we think it'll be highly valuable. But I'll leave it there. I'm curious whoever wants to jump in and touch on that.
Yeah,
Really curious what your numbers are.
Yeah, and I can share with you guys the numbers that we have. I think they're rudimentary, I would say, but I think this is a good atmosphere where we have a small group where it's easy enough to actually kind of relay some real details. And that's actually part of why I'm curious to hear from you guys too, because so many other conversations, you're just going to hear the highlight reel from people of everything that's working so well and how much money they're making or whatever. But obviously there's learning from some of the stuff that doesn't work as well. And so I'll share with you guys the tracking, the spreadsheet that I have that basically summarized each of these areas. How much have we spent on a monthly basis? How many leads did that result in? And then we just measured conversion to applications. So we pulled their credit and actually took a loan app, and then conversion to closings. They're not going to be mind-blowing numbers, but I think it might be useful for some of you guys to see. So I'll share that with you guys after the fact in the drive or whatever method is easiest, so you can actually kind of see what that looks like.
Well, so if I can ask a couple of questions here, Kyle. So the number I'm always looking at is client acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a dollar amount per funded loan.
Correct.
And so if you're closing a purchase mortgage, not a refinance, so a purchase mortgage, how much money are you spending on leads, advertising, ad buys, marketing, etc., per funded loan? Not per lead, not per lead, not per app, not per credit report, not per funded loan.
Yeah, we've been seeing about, for me, just to jump right to the cut on that, we've been seeing about $2,500 cost per closing.
Yeah, so that's about industry average is about $2,500 to get one funded mortgage in advertising, marketing, leads. And so that is where I struggle, is where's the $2,500 coming from, right? And so if you look at companies, hold on, I don't want to disparage. I'm not saying they're doing it wrong. I'm just, I struggle with it. So there's a national lender. I don't want to say their name, but we all know them. They have a call center in California. They outbound leads and they drive leads to realtors, but their client acquisition cost is about $2,500, which they can't absorb and have competitive rates.
Right.
Right. And so they decided to make up the difference is they're going to charge the realtor a lead fee, which is 25% of their commissions. They said, well, realtor.com is doing it, Zillow's doing it, like all these companies are doing it. So we'll just do the same thing. I look at it and say, I don't want to be the mortgage company that puts my hand in the realtor's pocket and said, you know, hey, do business with me. I'm going to take 25% of your commission. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works, right? They're doing it. They're closing a lot of loans from it. I just struggle with the concept of making that sustainable. Can you sustain a market share where you're charging realtors 25% of their commission? And if you don't charge them 25% of their commission, how are you absorbing $2,500 as a client acquisition cost without jacking up your margins? And now your rates aren't competitive. Like where's the $2,500 coming from? And you're not wrong, right? That's industry average.
Yeah.
You're right there in the industry average. I just struggle with, because our client acquisition cost is under $300 for purchases. And so now we don't have to do anything with the margin.
So
right?
how do we get there?
Keep your rates competitive. What's that?
I said, so how do we get there then? That would be like solve the whole resolution of this entire question if I could drive that.
Well, that's the video that I sent out to the group about, right, doing soft credit pulls in realtors databases.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so my lead cost is $1. Right. So if I give a realtor 50 leads a month, it costs me $50. Right. How many, if I close one loan every 6 months, it's $300 client acquisition cost.
Yeah.
And the realtor's making the phone calls, not the loan officer. Because then you get into other scalability problems where, how many loan officers are you going to be able to hire that want to be telemarketers? Very few. It's brutal.
But Eric, on your thing though, we either have to join your company or we have to make up our own system, like you and I talked about.
I don't want that. You can go to Monitor Base or Sales Boomerang, or you can go to companies and talk to them about creating an ecosystem, right?
I mean, I love your idea, but the ecosystem is the stumbling block for all of us because we didn't create that, or we have to create that.
I hear you. I'm above average smart, but I'm not a rocket scientist. Maybe I can figure it out.
We're all here are above average smart.
No, I know, but any chief information officer can build it for you, right? It's not that hard.
Okay.
You get your CIO involved on a Zoom call with, Sales Boomerang or whoever.
Okay.
And just say, okay, how do we do? It's not. I'd love to tell you that I have some patentable thing. I don't.
Okay.
It's not that hard.
Okay. I just haven't taken that step yet, so I don't know what it is. I didn't know what it involves.
Yeah, just get your chief information officer, whoever your CIO is, just get them on a Zoom call and okay, hi, we don't know how to do this. How do we do it? Oh, here's how you do it. Like
yes.
So I would say, to kind of, pivot back to Kyle's point, here is like, I think for everybody on lead gen and cost and all these kind of things is like, I looked at it in how you were kind of explaining on the call, Kyle, was like, yeah, I'm going to get 2 at-bats with a realtor, right? And I can win those business on the listing agents. That cost, okay, I'm not losing money on the deal. So is it good to just keep my people fed and stuff like that? That's where you're kind of coming from in this market. Did I have that correct, Kyle?
Yeah, it is. And I think part of the economics you were talking about, Eric, of like, well, how do you make the whole equation make sense? Part of it's going to depend on the cost to acquire the customer. So if it's $300, it's way easier to have it make sense than $2,500. But then I've been looking at other things like how are we compensating the team of people that are working on the, contact with that lead through closing? So how much money goes into, each of these areas of the business, and trying to basically formulate an equation by manipulating some of those variables that works. So then we could say, okay, this is a part of my business that is repeatable and can support some of these other areas.
So have you ever looked at outsourcing the telemarketing to Verse?
We use Verse. Yep.
Yeah. That should reduce your costs dramatically. They're super cheap.
So I think there's a lot of strategies on it. That's why I was curious, just as a starting point, probably, because we could dive super deep and spend, hours probably in one particular topic. with a group of like really top-notch professionals that we have here. So you weighed in a little bit of what you guys are doing that's clearly working well, just kind of what experience as a starting point each of us has with, okay, I've done some paid lead generation, it looked like this, I haven't done any. You, Eric, talked a little bit, and we could go more into what you guys have done at your company. I feel like that's a useful starting point, because then maybe a few of us want to branch off and say, all right, let's dig into creating something that is similar to what Eric has in place, or whatever the case might be. So
I mean, for like going back to like straight like your Zillow, Realtor, Facebook, these kind of things. Like, so I started, like, I've done the one-on-one Zillows, I've done the one-on-one Facebooks with realtors, those things. Like, they never pencil out for what you're putting in. Like, to me, like a one-to-one return is just not worth my time. Like, for me personally, it's just not worth my time. Right. Then I did with it's the number one group in the state of Washington. Right. They're out of Seattle. They came from Zillow and started a realty company, and they're all point per click lead gen, and they pay their realtors 1.5 and they get 1.5, and there's 125 realtors in their group right now. I think they did $1 billion or something like that last year, some insane number. Right. And so I've worked with them, from their start, where they were still at Zillow when I was making these calls to these people. Like, their pull through rate is 4 to 6%, and they're spending $120,000 to $150,000 a month on leads. Right. And they have drips, they have these campaigns, they have these long, like websites, they have literally everything under the sun. Right. I think again, this is my opinion, but it's like, I think unless you're spending a lot of money to like see the actual like benefit of your time and your team's time is really hard to see. Because I look at it, if you're spending $2,500, this is like, I've gotten completely out of lead gen, and I'm curious if it's changed on your guys' end, but if I'm spending $2,500 per closed loan, right, or whatever the number is, can I put that money in better use elsewhere? And I found it that like client appreciation parties, or helping a realtor throw a happy hour, or going deeper with them, I generate more activity on my own database or with realtors or referral partners. I've seen more leads come from that way. And then they're actually like a good use of my time, instead of being like, because I mean, the reality is, how many times did you get shot by those people? Like 5, 6, 7 times, right? Like, there's those unicorns that don't. But anyways, that's my rant on it. And I'm very curious to what everyone else is seeing now, because I haven't done it for a year and a half. And I'm just like, it just was never worth the time that I was putting in to get it back out.
Yeah, no, and I think, just because I want to pass it to someone else, but real quick on that, I do agree. I think for any of us that are in this group, most likely, based on where we're at for our income level and our dollar per hour, it's not going to make sense to be purchasing these leads, following up them ourselves, and working with these clients, just because there's probably higher payoff activities we can do. So part of what I'm looking at is there a structure where you pay a certain amount for new opportunities through this channel, like paid leads, and have a team member or members that are working on them, that this is kind of not to replace what you were talking about, Casey, with, going deep with realtors and digging into events and stuff like that, but to be in addition to that. So I just want to clarify I think, because I could pretty easily answer for all of us, I'm pretty sure it's not going to make sense to spend $3,000 and really reduce how much we're making and work with those clients directly, just because there's probably more important or higher payoff things we could be doing. But curious, like, Bryce or Mike, you guys have anything you want to chip in with from your experience?
Well, I mean, I've always looked at cost per closed loan, not only dollar amount, but basis points too, right? Because $2,500 for a $2 million loan is, 12 basis points, where it's 100 basis points at 250. And I think that when you got to look at that, and there's a way to adjust comp. And in my experience working with consumer direct, which I had a group a long time ago, you really have to, or what I did is I more targeted towards filters, and it was more towards refinance. And I think today there are niche opportunities with refinances. I think if in the purchase market, it's always been super competitive on those leads, and the conversion rate is super low because a realtor has a hard time getting that lead and allowing a consumer direct type of person, even though we're not here, they have a hard time allowing a consumer direct type of person to still close that transaction. And so those conversions have always been tougher in my experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've done Zillow for probably longer than I care to say. I actually just shut it off about 3 or 4 months ago. I started a new one with a brokerage that I work with called Sync. Darren is using it as well. He's been using it longer than I have, but we've had it on for probably 3 weeks. And we've only received 3 leads through there, but I started with a really low amount just to see how it worked out. I think we're doing like $500 a month is what I'm paying. Just to kind of see the quality, because I noticed as soon as Zillow started going directly to the realtor in markets and offering basically a scrubbed lead. Here's a scrubbed lead for a 30% referral fee, basically is what they're charging the realtor. The quality of leads for those agents that weren't part of that group went way down. And so that's where we've shifted that focus to more of our past client database, to Casey's point, doing more events, doing more happy hour type things, lunch and learns, that kind of stuff, to getting in front of the client somehow, instead of relying on somebody that you don't have a relationship with to just come over the phone and convert that. And in a market that, at least I'm speaking for my market, we have a lot, most of the agents that participate in those types of leads, they're on a team. So they're not super experienced agents. So they're not really good at having those conversion conversations. And so when a lead comes in, if that person even gives the slightest objection to, oh, well, I already have a relationship with the lender that I work with, they completely stop, don't even push it after that. And so rarely does the lead even get to me if these, less experienced agents are the ones trying to convert it, because as soon as they get that objection, like they're afraid if they try to push it a certain direction that they might lose the lead. And how scarce leads are today in this market, they're kind of going there. It's a big challenge. So I'm taking more of the approach that kind of Casey talked about, and really focusing on our CRM, our past client database, and talking to those people that we've already worked with in the past that are more comfortable referring us, and trying to go that route instead of paid leads. I feel like it's that market with the technology and social media and everything, I think it's just gotten really hard to have really good, high quality online leads.
Makes sense. I guess part of my fundamental question, I'd be interested for, I actually had to scroll over. I saw there was a few other people on the call I didn't see. So like, can you do both basically? Can a company, so there's the, organic self-generated lead sources, which I think most of us, it's where we started, or it's where we are currently. It's our bread and butter for, I think, a lot of people in this conversation. And there's, companies that are based off direct to consumer, paid, marketing of one form or another. And I've built where I'm at to this point all through referrals, past client database, and I have no intention to, I guess, take focus off of that, because I think you guys are right. What you talked to, that's the most effective, and you'd be foolish to, I think, not focus on that and instead just focus elsewhere. But question is, can you supplement it? And I guess that's where I'm curious if you guys have any experience where that's worked, or maybe it's been like a distraction and not worth it, which definitely I think there's plenty of examples of that.
Does anybody on this call have a strategy that allows them to acquire new business online or otherwise for less than $2,500?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks.
Does anybody have a success story that they can share with the group?
What I'm focusing on right now is direct to consumer, but spending money on short form content. So like Instagram Reels, but focusing that on direct to consumer instead of agent referrals. I know Darren's really good at this. He's been posting a lot. So I'm curious to know your numbers, but I'm going to start tracking, instead of paying like per lead, but paying for better quality as far as editing, video, short form content. I know we've all seen like Neil's stuff, but being able to track how much I'm spending per video.
Do you
and
see how many views he gets?
I know. And I'm like, I'm a young
Wow.
girl. I can do better than that. So I'm going to see
Yeah.
how that pans out. But that's my kind of strategy right now, is not just paying per lead, but spending more money on that form of marketing and scene. Because I've gotten quite a few just from my database of if I post something on social media, and I've definitely gotten leads from that, but maybe focusing on that a little bit more and spending more money on it.
Okay, that's cool. Because I hadn't really thought about that. I think that plays directly into Darren's like conversation. So maybe Darren, you could then weigh in after that if you're there. I know you're the black box, so we don't really know what you're up to or if you're there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, so what areas would you be spending money on, Megan? Would it be like anything as far as enhancing the reach of the content, or just making it better quality content so it naturally gets to
Better quality content? So paying for an editor,
Okay.
just because that takes a lot of time. I have someone on my team who actually used to work at Neil's company, so he has a lot of the insight on it, and was helping me a little bit. But that's probably where the I'd say the money is that I'm spending on going to the editing part of it, because that's taking a lot of time. But like, we all know the content, we all want it, we know what we're supposed to talk about, just a matter of getting it out there and looking better, which is not my forte.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's a good angle. So Darren, like, it sounds like that's been, you can weigh in, like where you're already focusing or trying to put more focus on is like the social direct to consumer, which, ties in, and maybe it does involve paid, but it's just a different format. You're not necessarily paying to reach people, you're paying to make your content better. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One is, I'm super fascinated with Eric's model on the kind of the sales boomerang piece that we're starting to use now. So I'm going to see if I can crack his code and implement that, because even on the sync leads that we've participated in, I'm going to see if I can run those back through sales boomerang and see if I can create, do trigger alerts and see if I can identify opportunities within that database, because there's a whole bunch of people in there that we really haven't effectively marketed to. Just to go back to kind of the piece of, I've spent a whole bunch of money with an agent team. They've kind of held me hostage a little bit this last quarter. Just basically say, hey, we're going to find somebody else if you can't do it. And so I've given them basically till the end of the year, because I've been paying for Sync and Zillow with them, and I'm fed up and I'm not getting the leads. We had a great run, but now it's not happening. He's using it to feed his agents, right? But the cost per lead is way too high. We're just not getting, I have to have at least 2 loans closing to even make the thing pencil. So it's not worth it. I mean, it probably has never been worth it. And certainly now it's not worth it at all to me. So I'm going to eliminate it. And then just, like any of these things, I don't want to be beholden to any one person for a cost tied to my business. I just don't want to do it. So I won't anymore. So anyway, that's it. That helps. That's what I'm planning to do. The second piece is on kind of the content creation side. We have to recognize 2 things. It's not a immediate, revenue source by any stretch. And we've had tremendous views on some of our content, both on, on all sorts of different platforms, but it doesn't drive immediate leads. You have to grow a fairly large audience. Now, if you break through like Bowie did, and now he's got, 60 something thousand followers, well, he's getting enough appointments off of it that it's paying for itself at this point, because you have to I pay for video editing, and then I also pay somebody to help me with ideas. And so all that's a real cost. And so I'm in the hole for sure. I believe that where we're headed is that content and commerce are going to intersect over the next decade. We're already seeing it with influencers, with big brands collabing. So I do believe if you can become influential enough, there's a real opportunity there to convert and generate more sustainable business. I just think it takes longer than people think. It requires more patience, and it costs more than people think. And so you have to decide, hey, is this one of the pillars that I want to invest in, or is there other ways to create the same amount of business in my business? And I would argue that currently, as it sits today, it doesn't pencil. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's been my experience thus far.
Can I
I know that's
ask
very
the group,
helpful.
can I ask the group a different question here?
Mhm.
So where I'm struggling is talking about the mathematics of it, but not talking about the customer experience of it. And where I struggle philosophically is, hold on. Hey, Darren, could you mute yourself, brother?
Yeah.
Thanks, man. So philosophically, like if you look at the Amazons of the world, right? What they're hyper focused on is the customer experience. Like, let's just focus on the customer experience first, and then figure out how to monetize it after. But so when I think about the customer experience, right? Like I just moved from Los Angeles to San Diego this year, right? I said I had a very direct experience in the marketplace, right? Southern California to Southern California, crazy to crazy. And it was very interesting for me to be a student of the experience. So what I feel is, and just my opinions, but a consumer does not want to talk to the loan officer first. Right? Like using me as an example, right? Like I'm in the space, right? Our company does mortgages for free for employees, right? I still used, so the builder's mortgage company was Fairway. I used Fairway. I paid their fees because I needed the house. I don't, it was new construction and I didn't care. I didn't care. I don't care. I need the house. But the mortgage for me was a complete afterthought. Like it was like, whatever, don't care. I just need the house. And so where I struggle with the customer experience is the mortgage space. What I hear all the time is get to the customer first, get to the customer first, control the transaction, get to the customer first. The customer doesn't want that though. And so I feel like as an industry, we're focused on what we want, and then let's change the customer behavior. Let's change what the customer wants. And I look at that, I go, my goodness, you know how much money it costs to change consumer behavior? Woo-hoo! Billions and billions of dollars to change consumer behavior. Or isn't it less expensive to just give the customer what they want?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Because what the customer wants is to talk to the realtor first. They don't want to. I've never met a consumer. I've never met one, and maybe you guys have, I don't know, but I've never met a consumer who says, I'm not emotionally engaged in the process yet, but here's my tax returns, bank statements, and pay stubs, and please pull my credit report and judge me.
Right.
I've never met this person.
Yeah.
And so they got to get emotionally engaged in the process first, then come to our side of the fence so we can do our jobs properly. And the moment we start saying, no, we got to get to the customer first, that's where it's $2,500 to get a funded loan, because we're trying to change consumer behavior. It's too expensive.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see a lot of truth in that. And I think maybe from my experience, it's a percentage basis where the vast majority of clients fall into that category you're talking about, where they're going to the agent first. And that's just where their emotions naturally lead them. It's a small percentage that would look to go to finance first. And maybe that's why it's so competitive and costly to get to them. It brings up the question, I guess this is just reframe for you guys, like the part of the reason I'm interested in this conversation, it might be helpful for some of you guys too, is I'm looking at how can we build a really comprehensive set of value that we deliver to the agents we work with. And of course, you've got to start with some of the basics that I think we're all probably good at if we're here, which is the experience of the process. How strong is your pre-approval? I mean, we could list these things. These are the things we talk about, right? When we sit down with agents that are like the fundamentals of why we'd be valuable to work with. But then how can we add on top of that? Because what I've talked to my team about is I don't want to be slightly better than another good lender in our market. I want to set our company up in a way where we're substantially better and it's measurable. You can see the difference. So that's where I look at, hey, can we go out and pay for leads and find referrals to send to our agents? Because we know if we could do that successfully, that would be valuable. But I guess I'm just acknowledging that purpose behind it, because that might open up other approaches that I haven't thought of yet, or maybe you guys have had some success with, is like, well, how can we pay some of the profits we have as a company, how can we reinvest some of that in supporting agents we work with to, strengthen those relationships and bring them more value? And maybe that's not in buying realtor.com leads and referring them pre-approved buyers necessarily. Maybe it's in something else completely. Because I know, Casey, you were talking about, hey, reinvested in their past client events or other areas that they see value in. So I just thought that might be-
what we've started, like, this is, I'm just tipping the iceberg on this, and I kind of talked to Darren on this last week, but just because we were in a coaching group before this was, so I'm like, I've designed, I call it a lunch menu, but it's a lunch and learn, right? So play on words a little bit, and it has 7 different things about education, right? And so it's helping our realtors or people in the market, because like what I've done is I've kind of started going through my list of realtors that I call on, and we've done this thing where a Zoom and Learn, right? Which is just basically an education on inflation, recession, what the Fed is, what the market's doing, a regurgitated Barry Habib, if you will, right? And we've done it with 3 realtor groups, and we've been able to pull 4 or 5 leads back from past deals, like past people and that haven't bought or whatever, or in their database, that have jumped on these calls and have engaged back in the market, right? By just educating them, hey, here's what's happening, here's why it's a great time to buy, yada, 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 right? And then I've been looking at other things of like how I can educate, how I can inform more people, how I can do this kind of thing. Because that's one thing I can control, right? I can't control my cost per lead. I can't control if these people use us. I can't control any of that kind of stuff, right? I wish I did, but it's not. And so when I've gone through this is I've actually stripped like 8 realtors I've worked with in the past, and just I'm moving on from them because they haven't engaged and wanted to grow, right? And so I'm looking at 7 different options. So it's the Zoom and Learn that I can create, that I have a template, I have a PowerPoint, these kind of things that I can help go into every realtor's client database. Obviously, first-time homebuyer classes, a financial advisor. We have a mental coach in our region, like a performance mental coach that we can help sit them with to get more or less out of their own way. A CPA to talk about cost segregation and how you can help, hack your taxes, if you will, right? DADUs, these kind of things, and like how you can actually pull people in, that are your past clients and help them, hack their taxes to essentially pay for the down payment to get more buyers out of their database. So, and then the last is a financial advisor to talk about 529s, insurance, these kind of things, right? And so the theory behind it is that if I can dive into these people's database, because all of us on this call are unbelievably successful at mining our own database and following up and doing these kind of things. But if we can go into the realtor's database and educate their clients, you're going to be able to pull more people into the market. So you're going to give them leads, and the cost is 0, right? Because really the financial advisor, these tax people, like maybe economists you have to pay for, but they'll probably do it for free, right? And so I'm cold calling realtors in my area when I have time that are whales, doing 12 plus deals on the buy side a year, whatever, however you want to call it, top agents, whales, right? And I'm getting traction with them by pitching this deal, because what I'm seeing, even the first part of the call, Eric said it, everyone's freezing. No one knows what to do. They're doing work from 2021 and 2020. And again, I'm just scratching the surface. So I don't have a ton of data behind this, but what I'm seeing is like, I've had 3 meetings with someone that did 26 units, 34 units, and 15 units last year, that I know they're the person that they work with and is a good agent or a good LO. And they're just like, he's dropping the ball. He's just not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And that is a common thread, right? And so I'm trying to like find 20 people that want to grow, want to do this, and want to like go into this education piece. And I'm seeing a ton of traction for it.
Got it. That's good stuff. And all those different types of educational pieces you were talking about, what is the structure of that as far as how you typically present it, how many people you get there, where you do it, or just like some of the basics of how you set that up?
Yeah. So the Zoom and Learn is like kind of the forefront of it, but that was like we had like 15, 8, and 3, and then we did our own and we had 1. So what we're doing is we're going to film it on Friday, and then we're going to send it out to all our pre-approvals and all our past clients, right? Just on our own, so that they could just open it and look at it on their own accord. The other ones is when I go pitch them is like, hey, here's what we offer. Here's what we
Yeah.
do. Here's the success that we've seen. This can be tailored to your team, could be tailored to you, could be tailored to your clients. However you see fit and you want to use this, this is the plan that we have. It's an 8-month plan. We could do it once a month, and it will, you know, drive revenue, drive leads to your business from your past clients and these kind of things in this education piece.
Okay, very cool. I'll just add one other thing and see if any of you guys have experience with something like this, which is a different area that I've had some experience with. And again, I said I'd share the numbers of what we've seen from our paid online leads. One other source that I did a lot more before COVID, and we've done a few times since then, is our in-person first-time homebuyer events, where we've paid to advertise them on Facebook. So usually we've spent around $500 to advertise the event on Facebook and get it out in front of a lot more people. And then we spend another $300-400 at the event buying everyone that comes beer and giving something away. But that overall, I've split the cost on and seen cost per closing, or, you know, customer acquisition cost a lot lower. It's just a lot more, I guess, hours that go into it that I would need to account for as well. That's been like $300.
That one, so that's super interesting to me, Kyle. So like, because then I again, I'm super hyper focused on client acquisition cost, right? Like, what is that number and how do you get it down?
Yeah.
And so when you look at doing first time homebuyer seminars, right? Eventbrite is free. Title companies have training rooms that you can do, because nobody wants to come to a mortgage company, right? Nobody wants to go to a real estate company because
Yeah,
you
we
feel like you're
posted
being
them all
sold.
at bars or breweries, because that even lessens the barrier a little further for people wanting to show up.
Yeah, but then you're spending, again, right? You're spending money on food, drinks, right? So I'm like, if you did a first time home buyer seminar at 6 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, and you're doing it at a title company's training room, you've got classroom style seating, you've got a projector, you've got a, right? It's non-threatening, but you're also not spending any money on food, alcohol, whatever. I'm not saying you shouldn't or should. There's just, like, if you're trying to do a presentation and there's food and drinks coming in and out, right? It's there's lots of clanking and distractions, and it's hard to get them focused on the information. It's also hard to have sponsors, right? Because if you're gonna do a first time home buyer seminar, it's great to have a title rep talking about title insurance, maybe an insurance agent talking about insurance. The more people you get involved, the more they're promoting it. And then if you're doing it, you know, every 2 weeks, like if you do it the second and fourth Thursday of every month or something like that, where it's recurring. Now people, well, I can't make that one, but I can make the next one, right? So you're constantly promoting that you're doing these events, but you could almost do them for free, like pretty darn close, because title companies, I don't care what market you're in, your title reps have free access to free training rooms, right? And so Eventbrite's free, the training room can be free, the marketing can be pretty inexpensive. Right now, if you're pushing out ads, Facebook ads, reels, et cetera, promoting these events, you know, that seems like a really inexpensive way to drive buyers to me.
Yeah, I think the question with that in particular is, how do you get enough people to show up, and how do you get them there? And I think actually that would be, for each of these topics we've discussed, there's probably legitimate, profitable way to do it that works really well, and some ways to do it that don't go anywhere, just like a lot of other things in our space. So it'd be worthwhile to, like, I guess as we go along, share more examples. Like Megan, Darren, you guys are focused on short form content, and like, as you see some lessons from that, some traction, you know, like, what could we maybe take away from that? I've seen first time homebuyer events, I've been a part of them, where no one shows up. You spend multiple hours and set everything up, and it's a complete waste of time. It's pretty depressing too, just stand at the front of a room, maybe 2 people show up, you're like, oh my God. And I've been at ones that were successful. So like, trying to share best practices for each of these things. And it sounds like, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but on the topic specifically of paid online leads, like realtor.com, Zillow, paid Facebook ads, paid like Google pay-per-click, is there anyone in here who is either doing it or has done it that has been like successful and happy with their results? I'm not trying to redirect the conversation completely, but I just wanted to touch back on that, because I think we could probably learn lessons from the successful outcomes of each of these different things. There's plenty of examples of ways that it maybe doesn't work well, but has anyone had success with that, either right now or in the past? I guess success is a relative term, but I feel like we're like kind of borderline right now. We're spending $2,500. We knew it was going to be expensive. I'm not thrilled with it, but it's not going so poorly that I don't want to continue with it. It's kind of in a middle ground for us at the moment. But what have you guys seen?
I'll just offer up two quick thoughts. One is that I think the lead volume is down as a whole, right? Industry wide,
Yes.
people just aren't as curious about home buying. So, traffic on stuff socially and online is going to be lower, just given the narrative in the market. The one thing I would want to test, just philosophically, is Eric's point around, hey, I just wanted a home. I didn't care about the loan, which I agree is sentiment. But the one thing I'm running into, and I'm seeing it because I've been going back to doing open houses, which I haven't done in 5 or 6 years, but I just need to do it right now. And I want to hear what people are saying. And so the agents aren't saying the right things to convert business, in my opinion. Now, maybe it doesn't matter or not, but I believe that I can convert a client better than the agent can right now to make a buying decision. And while it's hard to scale that, that's my fundamental belief. And so I'm basically telling agents, hey, listen, don't even waste your time with these buyers unless they've talked to me first, because right now the numbers are dictating the buying decision. It's not about the property in most cases. It's about affordability. It's about the payment in not all cases, right? There's a lot of lifestyle motivators still, but many times it comes down to payment, affordability, seller buy down, whatever that strategy is. So I still want to kind of test that theory that Eric's mentioned, because on one hand, I agree, but on this other, maybe it's just the optimism in me that I believe there's a way to change that narrative, or at least currently.
So Darren, so when you're sitting in open house, what's your marketing strategy to go after the people that walk into the open house? Like, are you doing a co-branded post-event marketing strategy to educate them on why they should buy a house? Like, you have emails and text message drips pre-set up, co-branded? Like, what are you doing to handle the follow-up?
It's a great question. No, I don't have a great system in place. I mean, I'm basically, I literally have just gone out for the first time in years. So I'm just basically trying to get the message across, like, hey, just send all your buyers to me. That's the fundamental thing I'm saying. But do I have a campaign? No, not yet. I mean, we have campaigns we've built in the past. I just have to probably, reinvigorate a new one relative to the current market and start showing them options. But no, I haven't run anything. We're not scaled around this. It's really like me just going out back in the streets and figuring out what's going on. But but I agree that's critical.
So one of the lessons that Tim taught me I'm old, so a long time ago, he taught me is that most salespeople are taught to sell themselves. And that's the belief system that creates the ceiling. Right. And so if you want to break through that ceiling, you got to stop selling you and you got to start selling your system. And so the script shift for me was like, if you want to do business with me, that's fine, but I'm not valuable. Like, it has nothing to do with me. What you want is my system. Now let me show you my system. That's what's valuable. Right. And so the moment I started shifting that language, my whole life changed. And because I'm the person that can't take a vacation, right? Like, I hate vacations. It makes me crazy. I can go for like a 3-day weekend and then I'm done. Like, this whole Costa Rica trip in December, like my stress level is like grossly out of control. The thought of being with you guys for 10 days without access. It is what it is. But coming back to, like, if you went to realtors and say, the reason you want me at your open house is because of my system. Let me introduce you to my follow-up. The moment we take anybody who comes into that open house, we put them in my system, here's what the system is going to do. They're going to get an email and a text message every week that's co-branded. They're going to get this kind of follow-up. I'm going to plug verse in. We're going to have voicemail follow-ups. We're going to have, right now, like, oh, wait a second, right? Like, you're selling a system versus send your clients to me and I am going to pre-approve them. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. To a lot of realtors, especially the good ones, it feels like you're just selling them something versus providing a system of value. Just feedback, whatever that's worth. I feel like you'll get a bit more traction.
100% agree. I think it's great. I think we could all implement something right now. I do feel like going back to the basics right now is something that we have to do as this market shifted. But I think having that strategy is a great idea. And then you can put an army of people out to do that work where it's not just you, it's plugging in the system, and then you
Correct.
arm your
Yeah, because
salespeople with
that's
it, right?
correct. Have your salespeople sell a system, not sell you. Correct.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that,
And you
for
can
sure.
and you can build that in any of the CRMs. Like, I don't care if you're using Jungo or Be in Touch or Total Expert or whatever you're using. You can build all of that in whatever CRM you're using. Because what realtors are bad at, and I don't know that they're ever going to fix this, is they're bad at following up. They are. So if you have a system that does that for them, now there's value, right? But you want to make it so it's co-branded, not just from you. They want to feel involved in the process.
Yeah, what do you guys see as like the ramp to get into that system, right? Like if they're going to go into my CRM, what do you see as the on ramp to that? To obviously you got to get them signed up into some sort of platform, HomeBot or whatever else. But obviously something that goes into your drip system where you can co-brand is the better idea.
For us, it's all over the place, right? It depends on the motivation level. Like there's no average, right? It's because like I walked into open house over the weekend because it was in my neighborhood and I'm curious as where home prices are, but I'm not in the market, right? So if somebody puts me in their system, right, I'm not getting anywhere. And so it's just you're jamming people into your system and letting your system do all the follow-up. It's not time consuming for you other than being at the open house, but your system should be doing all the follow-up, not you personally. And by the way, I put Verse, their website, in the chat group for anybody that wants to click on their website. A lot of our people use Verse. They outsource all their follow-up through Verse. It's super cheap, guys, like cheap. It's incredible.
Yeah, Verse is a good tool. We use it for specific purpose when it comes to follow-up. It's really effective at what it does. I was curious to pivot a little bit because I'm sure most of us have to get off by 2 o'clock. I know I do. It's even taking an hour is tough. But Deb or Christine, did either of you guys have anything in the direct-to-consumer or kind of paid direct-to-consumer or anything related space you wanted to jump in with?
I'll start. I've done it and done like the direct to consumer realtor.com, spent a lot of money on it. I think the only positive thing that came out of my experience in trying to go direct to consumer, other than just my own database that we drip on all the time, is the realtor acquisition. So the ability to keep them updated on leads, and so there's been relationships built when we did that, so that was the benefit of it. But the downside of it was just, I pulled out because it was so expensive. I mean, the acquisition, like Eric's saying, so true, that acquisition. And they don't want to talk to a lender first. They want to talk they want to talk to the realtor because they want the shiny object. And a lot of mine they're like quick pop, right? It's like, oh, I need a prequal. We're putting in an offer tomorrow. They've already taken them out shopping. And so that feedback is so spot on. And, but that's been my experience. It's just the cost to go direct to consumer. Obviously we all want to go direct to consumer, but Eric's right in the fact that they don't want to talk to us. They're like, they want to talk to the realtor. They want to see the shiny object. So that's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like we've all seen different versions of a similar thing. And to me, maybe as I'm thinking about it right now, it comes from the fact that for someone who is not creative or having success in other areas of growing their business, it's a button they can click to and pay the same dollar amount, right, to obtain the customer. So that's probably where we're seeing, this is like marginal. It's not like there's no benefit to it, but it isn't really a home run. And whereas something like, Eric, you were talking about a unique approach, which I definitely want to learn more about. We're using Monitor Base, but I want to learn more about the approach you're taking with kind of creating opportunities from a realtor's database. Casey, you were talking about, I think there's all these different strategies that are not being used as much. And it's actually what I've seen that kind of prompted this call is I'm thinking I might scale back our usage right now, not because I am giving up on online leads altogether. I kind of understand their drawbacks, but I think right now there's an increased demand from the mortgage professional side to buy them because a lot of people don't have business, and there's less supply of people that are actually going online and inquiring about a mortgage or going through that funnel. So I think the cost and the return is going down from what I'm seeing, from what was like marginal, not great, to not really where we need it to be. So yeah, I'll be interested to go ahead, Megan. Yeah.
I was gonna say, have you guys, this is kind of on a different topic and might be another conversation, but have you guys found any success with taking over other loan officers' databases who have gone out of the business? I've
That is
had
a
two
great
people reach
question.
out to me recently that told me that they're no longer in the business. So I was trying to figure out a strategy to do that, or like a cost-effective way. Because I know a lot of people are getting out of the business right now, and maybe they don't have a great database, but how we could go about and obtaining that and probably doing a better job of getting business from there.
My feedback is if their database was a good one, they wouldn't be getting out of the business. And so you're acquiring whatever, because they're not going to give it to you for free, right? So you're spending some kind of money on acquiring something that is already damaged goods, right? Because
I'm personally, I think you're right, Eric. There's going to be a lot of hurdles and difficulties with that, but I have that on my list. I use Todoist and keep a bunch of stuff that I'm like thinking about. So it's on like my someday maybe list is, could we pay from a compliance standpoint a commission to like a 1099 just for the referral if my team can handle the application all the way through?
So the answer is no on the 1099. So I'll tell you that right now. The answer is no on a 1099. You cannot pay 1099 revenue on mortgage revenue, period, end of discussion. It has nothing to do with licensing, guys. It's an IRS ruling. That's tax evasion. And the IRS is federal and it overrides state. So it doesn't matter what your state you're in, doesn't matter what your state licensing says, it's irrelevant. The IRS says you can't do it, therefore you can't do it. Just don't, and anybody who looks for an end run on it, you're begging for problems. Because if you go through an IRS audit, you won't enjoy it. I've been through 2 IRS audits personally. I can tell you they are not enjoyable. I passed them. I won both times, but woof. You cannot 1099 mortgage revenue to anybody, anytime, anywhere.
So the outline I have, and Megan, I think we could circle back and have another conversation about it, because I really think there is opportunity there to be figuring out what way could you approach it, which is, I know for myself in my market, successful originator, they're in their 60s, they still have a book of business, they're not crushing it, but they're done. They don't want to take the application, they don't want to work it through the process. And they're at a company like the one I left where that's what you have to do. If you're going to get paid on it, you can't just hand off someone's contact information. You're going to need to do some work, and they don't want to do that. So I do feel like there might be some opportunity there, especially if there are people that are getting pushed out right now. They rode through the refi boom, right? Because they had that huge book of business and couldn't turn it down. And now they're like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah, it was more so, there's also like several, like you're saying, people who are trying to get out of the business and retire, who do have a good, like not a giant database, but their clientele was good and they were very loyal. So more so like that avenue of it too.
And to add to that though, Megan, like you can go get free databases, right? Like you can download your cell phone contacts and do a reverse append for free. And you can upload that into your system. You can go get a farm list from your title rep, right? That's free. So getting databases is free. You don't need to spend money to go get databases.
What about with these people that are getting out of the business? Because like this has been, I know a couple people on this call's companies, and they've been trying to like talk about how to do this and how to help people get out. And I'm just kind of thinking this as we go through. What about hire him on your staff? He doesn't come into the office, doesn't do anything. He sits on your staff. You pay him 25 bips or whatever. He's a junior LO, and he refers everying into you, and everything that closes, you pay him 25 basis points or 50 basis points for the first year, and then lower as you go. And maybe you get him on content with video of like, hey, just FYI, I've been doing this for X years and I'm looking at stepping out. My guy Kyle here is going to be handling most of the front end, but we still want to serve you. I'll still be kind of, in here. And it's a great way to, continue to chat something in those kind of realm, because like, that's the biggest key is like, here's my database. Well, why are these people going to use you? They have no idea who you are.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking roughly, Casey. And so I think that would be worthy of a conversation, because let's say Casey's life takes you in a different direction and you are exiting the mortgage business, you're starting a different tech startup or something. People are still going to call you or reach out to you, say, hey, Casey, I'm thinking about buying a house, can you help me? And you're going to probably refer them just to a friend that's in the business or something of that nature and not get compensated at all. But could we structure it like what you were saying? So Yeah, I gotta run, but I think that would be a great another topic for a conversation if you guys, for those that are interested. We could probably do some breakouts like this and get deep on stuff for those that are interested, and for those of us who aren't, then we don't have to participate. But
I'll send the recording of this to the group in the chat.
thanks, Eric.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys.
You guys,
See you
thanks so much.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
for recording.
Eric,
Yeah.
thanks for dropping some bombs. Appreciate that.
Okay, man.
Later.